So how do you think we can remove stereotypes in Singapore?
The one you can't help it. It's always there. Every one of us have our own way of thinking, own way of understanding, So the one you can't help it. It just really still the same old thing, had to go into communication. Communication to promote understanding.
Stereotypes happen because they're like a mental heuristic. They're a direct or an easy connection towards something. Our brain likes to simplify things, It's just easier to live that way, with stereotypes. And these stereotypes are not just perpetuated by the older generation, but it's also perpetuated by ourselves. Self-limiting beliefs, self-fulfilling prophecies. But it's comfy, it's easy for people to fall onto it. Again, it goes back to being willing to be uncomfortable. Taking the responsibility upon the self to erode these stereotypes. Not just being the victim, very common Asian thing to do. Complain, be the victim, but then don't do anything yourself.
For example, my mother will always tell me, in a Chinese kind of context, she used to say something like, don't believe in Hakkas. They are very crafty people. Don't believe in Cantonese, they are all boastful people. These are very stereotyping. And and then if they don't carry from one generation, that's going to be very bad. Educate them, open their eyes. I have some good Hakka friends, but they are not crafty. They don't cheat me. I have some Cantonese friends, they are not boastful. So once you get into contact with the real situation, you understand all these stereotyping are actually not true.
To be honest, I don't think it's possible to completely remove stereotypes, but I think we can make them less harmful, and we can probably start with assessing the jokes we make. Is it because it's funny, or it's the main crux of the joke being a racial element? And is that racial element perpetuating harmful stereotypes? I think Gen Z in general, I think as parents, we would be more woke. I think this wokeness can help us educate the next generation on sensitivity and insensitivity, which is something I think that the older generations might lack.
How can we remove the stereotypes? I think it's a really long process. Along the way, the stereotypes and the stigma that we have has already been ingrained on a lot of different cultures and different mindsets. But how can we really achieve that, right, is really to have a lot more open and constructive conversation. I feel because as a nation, we are so scared to step on one another's toes in the different culture. At the same time, if we are really not addressing the root problem that we have, I wouldn't say for one another, but the root problem that we have as to why we are having such mindset on the different stereotypes that we have, right? So to have a lot more open conversation, it will spark a lot more topics to be conversed about. Because right now, we're talking about it here and there, but it's not really amplified. But I feel that if we were to really address these issues, right, the different cultures and the different races would, from some angles, see the different point of views from the different races itself. But I think this is also really scary to execute as well, because cultural and racial aspect is such a sensitive topic here, right? But to me, I feel that regardless, a conversation will still have to be needed and required.
How do you get Singaporeans to leave their comfort zone? How do you get Singaporeans out of their comfort zone is similar to how you get children to get out of their comfort zone through gentle parenting. But gentle parenting does not mean pampering them or helicopter parenting as the common term is these days, but rather it is to allow them to make mistakes. And as children grow up, naturally, they will make mistakes. So let them make mistakes. Let there be not chaos necessarily, but let there be conflict. Have such conflicts in safe spaces. The only reason why you get closer to your girlfriend is why you argue. Not because you buy her flower. She says she loves you, but you don't understand anything more from her because you buy her flower. You understand more from her because you had an argument and you find out, you actually don't agree with me on this. Okay, fine, we can work this out.
For the younger generation, there's less racial stereotyping already, because during their school years, during their working life, they do come across one another. I think they are quite neutral there. So stereotyping probably is for my older generation.
We cannot just categorize a certain race according to their attitude or their attitude to a certain race. Things like this kind of creates the narrative in each other's head, or why this Malay, or why this Chinese, or why this Indian, all these things. And that creates multiple connotations, multiple narratives in people's head. And from there, we kind of think that so this race acts a certain way. I think at the end of the day, we need to remove such connotations. Ask the person that actually what's going on? Have an open conversation. Ask first rather than say first. I think it's super important that we ask rather than say, so that we kind of pick out what's going on. And from there, we kind of have a different, more open narrative with each other, rather than this person. We pull away from that to actually have that open conversation.
It's very natural for you to like your own culture, but it doesn't mean that you have to dislike other cultures. You can respect them all. One of my friends said that, why do all of you have big eyes? And I felt like, do I really have big eyes? What if other people think that I have big eyes, but they're just keeping to themselves? Now I don't really mind, because when I just see myself, it just looks like who I am.
There were some stereotypes, like my experience in school growing up. It was striking because it happened in my own home country, you know. I didn't face racial discrimination going overseas. I faced racial discrimination in a place where I call home and in school where I should be feeling safe and I should be feeling a sense of belonging.
To go back to my secondary school times, my friend, who is still my friend, and he doesn't mean any harm, he mentioned this to me in a classroom and said that, like, hey, you dark skin. Although I knew I was tan because of the constant basketball in the sun, I took offense to that. He just basically categorized me as such. For me wise, I still remember it now because it has so much imprint on my mind that, like, oh, cause I'm half Malay, that's why I have a darker skin. But when I think about it now, I don't really care about it because I think it's just kids being kids, us being young and saying stupid things to each other, but we actually don't mean harm. But I think moving forward is just that, like, how can we adjust that, in a sense, connotation, and how do we react according to that is super important. I'm dark skinned, so does it matter? It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't mean that I'm bad at school, doesn't mean I'm bad at life.
Actually, it's not up to you to educate your friend. You cannot really educate your friend. Whether they are your friend, they are not your friend. If they cannot understand you, if they don't want to understand you, there's no point in making friends anymore. You know, so as far as I'm concerned, they need to understand you. Why is it like that? You know, they need to ask you questions, they need to understand you, rather than make some unfriendly remarks.
The key point is just always try not to look down on your friends at different races. For example, my Indian friends, right? I ever hear before, hey, why you don't want to try eat beef? Things like that, you know. But it's their religious law, you see. Instead of saying that, right, just try not to provoke them with all these insensitive comments, you see. Give mutual respect to them, respect their religions.
I feel like we just have to be empathetic to other people's experiences. Like, we have to come from a place of sensitivity and empathy and concern and care for the people in our society. As individuals, we have to be kind to everyone. Like, that's the crux of it. Like, just be kind to people. And if you want to be kind to someone, you wouldn't say things that would necessarily like hurt them or other them or ostracize them in any way.
Singapore has transitioned from racially tolerant of each other. We are definitely moving away from that, especially with the current generations a bit more integrated with each other. I think we have this opportunity to actually grow even further as the current generations, or like in a sense Gen Zs. Now it's just a matter of us being resilient in being forward with each other, being trustful with each other. I think it's super important that we communicate with each other. We wouldn't have this life that we call in Singapore, which is very racially harmonious.
That's the last one? Okay.